The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell starts right now. Hey, Lawrence.
Hey, Jen, I want to prepare you for something next week, and that is that I am going to be on vacation next
Oh, no.
week. Yeah, and so you won't be saying hi to me, but you will have some very able people here who will be getting this hour through the week. And I'm telling you, Jen, nothing can get me back here next week. Absolutely nothing. I don't care if somebody hand delivers me the Epstein birthday book. I'm nothing. Nothing's going to get me back here.
Well, I'm going to spread a rumor that you're writing the next reboot of The West Wing.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I'm going to do a segment each day on some ideas for episodes, and we'll see if we can lure you back.
They take that very seriously. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Try to control myself.
Okay. Thanks, Jen. I'll see you week after next.
Have a good vacation.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Well, tonight, the birthday book is coming out. One page at a time. That is the breaking news of the night. 24 hours after we broke the news on this program last night that a book of birthday letters to Jeffrey Epstein on his 50th birthday is in the possession of the Epstein estate in Florida. Other news organizations have credited our reporting and been following up on it and adding significantly to that reporting tonight. The latest reporting is from the New York Times, and it includes the image of the first page of the birthday book. It is a handwritten letter from Jeffrey Epstein's convicted co-conspirator in sex trafficking, Ghislaine Maxwell, who assembled the book with the help of many of Jeffrey Epstein's rape victims who Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell raped when they were in middle school and high school. We learned last night on this program from the lawyer representing those victims that they were told by Ghislaine Maxwell to help her actually assemble the birthday book. And here is Ghislaine Maxwell's birthday note. The very first page of the birthday book was the birthday note from Ghislaine Maxwell to Jeffrey Epstein. Here it is. It says, Jeffrey, the idea behind this book was simply to gather stories and old photographs to jog your memory about places and people and different events. Some of the letters will definitely achieve their intended goal. Some, well, you will have to read them to see for yourself. I know you will enjoy looking through the book, and I hope you will derive as much pleasure looking through it as I did putting it together for you. Happy, happy birthday, love, Ghislaine. Both the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal are reporting tonight that Donald Trump's name appears on the list of contributors to the birthday book. The Journal reports that contributors to the birthday book, quote, were grouped under categories such as science, Brooklyn, and family. The Journal says that Donald Trump and Bill Clinton were listed on the Friends group, which also included Jeffrey Epstein's criminal defense lawyer, Alan Dershowitz. The New York Times is also reporting tonight on another handwritten note to Jeffrey Epstein by Donald Trump. It says, to Jeff, you are the greatest, reads an inscription in a copy of Mr. Trump's book, Trump, The Art of the Comeback, that belonged to Mr. Epstein. And there it is. You see it signed Donald. It's dated October 1997, the month the book came out. That signature that you just saw will no doubt be compared by handwriting experts to the Donald signature, that one-word signature that reportedly appears in the description of the letter bearing Donald Trump's name in the Epstein birthday book, as was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. Unlike the Wall Street Journal's report on the Trump letter, the Bill Clinton letter contains no sexual innuendo. The Journal describes the Clinton page this way: a single paragraph in Clinton's distinctive scrawl saying, it's reassuring, isn't it, to have lasted as long across all the years of learning and knowing, adventures and illegible word, and also to have your childlike curiosity, the drive to make a difference, and the solace of friends. Bland stuff, Nothing sexually suggestive in the Clinton birthday message to Jeffrey Epstein, something that could have been written by Clinton staff or Bill Clinton himself. The Wall Street Journal reports a spokesman for Clinton declined to comment on the birthday message, which was reviewed by the Journal. He referred to the Journal to a previous statement that the former president had cut off ties more than a decade before Epstein was arrested in 2019 and didn't know about Epstein's alleged crimes. That is Bill Clinton essentially validating the reporting that is his letter. Bill Clinton is not threatening to sue the Wall Street Journal about the birthday book. He's not saying that's not my letter. Alan Dershowitz is not threatening to sue the Wall Street Journal about their reporting on the birthday book, which includes a letter from Alan Dershowitz to the child rapist who Alan Dershowitz defended in the first criminal cases against Jeffrey Epstein. The Journal reports the letter from Dershowitz, who represented Epstein in the first criminal case in the 2000s, included a mock-up of a Vanity Unfair magazine cover with mock headlines. It's been a long time, and I don't recall the content of what I may have written Dershowitz said. So that's Alan Dershowitz confirming tonight that he contributed to the birthday book. Alan Dershowitz confirming the existence of the birthday book. Of all the people mentioned in the Wall Street Journal reporting who contributed to the birthday book, including fashion designer Vera Wang, none of them claim that they did not contribute to the birthday book. Donald Trump is the only one making that claim, and it's not working. And because Donald Trump knows it's not working, he's been trying desperately to create other news stories, including the childishly idiotic notion that President Barack Obama committed treason. Nothing will come of any of that nonsense, and it is unworthy of diverting our attention from what Donald Trump wants us to stop talking about, and that is his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. Because no one can humiliate Donald Trump better than Donald Trump, he did it once again today in another desperate and failed attempt to take our attention away from Donald Trump's 15-year relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and that birthday book, a period about which Jeffrey Epstein has said in a tape-recorded interview, "I was Donald's closest friend for 10 years." A Fox poll shows that 80% of registered voters are following the Epstein case. Only 13% of registered voters believe the Trump administration has been open and transparent about the Epstein case. 67% disagree, including 60% of Republicans and 56% of MAGA supporters. In order to try to distract from how close he was to Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump chose to stand close to another white man today, although when they were standing together, only one of them looked white because one of them was covered in a badly applied orange makeup product. The man with the orange makeup is the most self-obsessed human being on planet Earth, and he has full access to mirrors all the time. And that means he has seen his face without the orange makeup and with the orange makeup, and he's decided that he looks better with it, which leaves you wondering just how much older than Jerome Powell would Donald Trump look if he wasn't covered in orange makeup. Donald Trump is 79 years old. Jerome Powell is 7 years younger and immeasurably more intelligent than Donald Trump. And that was on display today when Donald Trump, in his failed attempt to divert our attention from his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, went to the Federal Reserve headquarters, which is being remodeled, and thought he would shame Jerome Powell because the construction project was over budget, according to a piece of paper given to Donald Trump by the most incompetent White House staff in history, a piece of paper that took Jerome Powell seconds to read and seconds more to explain to Donald Trump how wrong his piece of paper is. It was the perfect lesson in why Donald Trump normally avoids confronting anyone who he knows is much, much smarter than he is.
Yeah. So we're taking a look, and it looks like it's about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
3.1.
3.2.
This came from us?
Yes. I don't know who does that.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building. Is what that is. That's a third building.
Well,
including
no,
the
but
Martin building.
it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
Donald Trump claims to be the real estate guy. Jerome Powell doesn't claim to be the real estate guy. But Jerome Powell apparently did very well in arithmetic in elementary school. By the time Jerome Powell was in the 3rd grade, he could have done what you just saw him do to Donald Trump. Donald Trump was adding in the cost of a 3rd building that was built 5 years ago. And Jerome Powell handed Donald Trump a kind of humiliation no president before him has ever suffered. And so that Trump video humiliation will now be seen by millions and millions and millions of viewers just over the next 24 hours. It's very likely going to be on Stephen Colbert's show and other late night shows. They'll be running that video, then it'll be running on YouTube. And yes, there's something especially delicious about a clown being clowned like that. But what's important about it is that that was the very best move Donald Trump thought he had today to try to turn news coverage away from the birthday letter to Jeffrey Epstein that bears Donald Trump's name and what we now know to be several copies of the birthday book. Tonight, the Wall Street Journal is reporting this. The letter bearing Trump's signature, which had the outline of a naked woman, was one of the more memorable pages, according to the people involved in putting the album together. Last night on this program, Bradley Edwards told us who helped Ghislaine Maxwell put that book together. You said that some of your clients have specific knowledge of that birthday book.
Sure. Yes, more than one, multiple of them.
And what is that knowledge? They saw it, or they were around him when he was 50 years old? Were they present at his birthday, his 50th birthday?
I don't know the answer to that last question. I do know that they were involved in the assembly of the book, several of them. They were told by Ghislaine to assist in putting the book together. Others have seen the book post birthday and after it was assembled.
Some of Jeffrey Epstein's victims were actually used by Ghislaine Maxwell to assemble that birthday book, to actually put those letters together in that book.
Yeah, you have to remember that Jeffrey Epstein was abusing and exploiting young women and children every day of his life. So anybody that's around for any major event, such as the assembly of his 50th birthday book, they're going to have to be involved in assembling or playing their part, whatever they were directed to do, with respect to that book.
The Wall Street Journal reported at 7:08 p.m. tonight, Brad Edwards, a lawyer who has represented more than 200 of Epstein's victims, said on MSNBC Wednesday evening that he has multiple clients who remember the birthday book. The existence of the book is an absolute fact. Edwards said several digital copies of the album have been created. Pages have been reviewed by Justice Department officials who investigated Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell years ago, according to people familiar with the matter. The album is part of Epstein's estate. Several copies means that the likelihood of the birthday book becoming public is increasing exponentially. MSNBC's legal correspondent Lisa Rubin, a frequent and valuable guest on this program, asked Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyer tonight, does Maxwell herself have the book? And Maxwell's lawyer declined to comment. But today, Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal defense lawyer spent most of his day hanging with Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer. Todd Blanche's last job before becoming the number 2 at the Justice Department as the Deputy Attorney General was serving as Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer in his the criminal cases that Donald Trump was facing last year. Todd Blanche lost the one case that went to trial, and he still delighted in his failing final argument to the jury, in which he called the prosecution witness, Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's former lawyer, the greatest liar of all time. Here is criminal defense lawyer Todd Blanche, after losing that trial last year, talking about that trial with Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal defense lawyer, who Todd Blanche spent the day with today.
Last thing about the closing. So you called him the MVP of liars. I love the gloat line, of course.
You loved it because you gave it to me, David. Say it to the world.
So
it was genius. It was genius, David. And I mean, in all seriousness, to you, I know a lot of people that have worked with you. I know a lot of people who know you very well. I now consider you a friend and someone who I know pretty well. You are by far the best out there, and I'll always say yes to this podcast.
Those two friends met today in what is the first time in Justice Department history that a deputy attorney general seized a case away from the prosecutor handling the case after firing that prosecutor last week, Maureen Comey, and then taking it upon himself to go have a meeting with a convicted sex trafficker who was also charged with perjury. There is absolutely no legitimate basis for such a meeting with the deputy attorney general, former criminal defense lawyer for Donald Trump, who gave every appearance today of still functioning as, in effect, Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer. Could Todd Blanche have any other purpose in talking to Ghislaine Maxwell than trying to get her to say something positive about his client, Donald Trump? Todd Blanche tweeted today, "Today, I met with Ghislaine Maxwell, and I will continue my interview of her tomorrow. The Department of Justice will share additional information about what we learned at the appropriate time." Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyer said this after the strangest meeting a criminal defense lawyer has ever had with a deputy attorney general of the United States.
Good to see you all. How's it going? Great. Come on over, Leah. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all. We had a very productive day today with the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, and Ghislaine Maxwell. First, we want to thank the Deputy Attorney General for being so professional with all of us and for meeting with us. He took a full day and asked a lot of questions, and Ms. Maxwell answered every single question. She never stopped, she never invoked a privilege. She never declined to answer. She answered all the questions truthfully, honestly, and to the best of her ability. And that's all the comment we're going to have today about the meeting.
And so tonight, the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, who were in middle school and high school when Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell raped them together, have more to fear tonight from Ghislaine Maxwell thanks to Donald Trump. Donald Trump's former criminal defense lawyer offered Ghislaine Maxwell what? Exactly what? To answer his questions today. Ghislaine Maxwell, who never testified in her own defense in her criminal trial, knowing she was facing a possible 20 years in prison, suddenly decided today that she would talk to a criminal prosecutor for the first time in her life. She could have done that when she and Jeffrey Epstein were both charged for those crimes, but she didn't. She fled. She was hiding out in New Hampshire when she was tracked down by federal agents and apprehended. And even though she was facing a federal criminal trial in which she knew there wasn't one word of testimony that she could give to that jury under oath that wouldn't make the case against her even worse. That's what she knew. That's why criminal defendants like Ghislaine Maxwell don't testify. If Ghislaine Maxwell thought for a second that she could have helped herself with the jury, with even one juror, by testifying, she would have testified. But she knew, and her criminal defense attorney knew, that the testimony against Ghislaine Maxwell by her victims, who she personally raped, along with Jeffrey Epstein, she didn't just lure them into being raped by Jeffrey Epstein. She joined Jeffrey Epstein in the room and joined personally in raping those girls. She knew that that testimony against her in court was something she could not possibly overcome. And so she didn't say a word. She decided there's nothing that she could say under oath to counter that testimony. But today, according to her lawyer, she answered every question. She never stopped. She never invoked privilege. What did Todd Blanche offer her to make her suddenly decide she was safe with Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney? Why did Ghislaine Maxwell decide today that she could tell Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney anything, and it couldn't possibly get her in more trouble. Here's what Bradley Edwards, the lawyer for hundreds of Epstein and Maxwell victims, told us last night.
One thing that has really alarmed our clients, particularly today, is the information that now Ghislaine Maxwell is being visited in jail, and that she is somehow being given some credibility and a platform on this particular topic. I think what people are forgetting is that Ghislaine Maxwell wasn't only indicted on sex trafficking charges. Ghislaine Maxwell, because of testimony she gave on multiple occasions in the civil cases where we sued her, she provided testimony, and as a consequence of false testimony, she was indicted on 2 perjury counts on this particular topic. So we're going to go and ask somebody to tell the truth who was indicted on perjury charges related to this particular topic. Now, does she have information that could potentially help? Yes. Will she be truthful about it? Who knows? But whoever is going to be the questioner, whoever's going to be the interrogator, must know more than just a rudimentary understanding of the case. You have to have seen her other deposition transcripts to know what she said so that you can keep her in line. You have to know her testimony from her criminal trial to keep her in line, and you have to understand the case. Sending somebody there that knows nothing, she's going to say whatever she wants to say. And what's her incentive? Is her incentive because she's going to get a deal? I have many clients who say, look, President Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell were good friends back then. Is he going to commute her? Is he going to pardon her? And I have said to them, look, I know that you feel like an afterthought right now. I know that you feel like you don't matter. For him to do that would be he thought about you and he decided you do not matter.
Good friends back then. Donald Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell were good friends, and it looks like Donald Trump's former criminal defense lawyer and Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal defense lawyer are trying to make them good friends once again. Andrew Weissmann will join us after this break. In a Justice Department filing in the Ghislaine Maxwell case in 2020, the Justice Department then said, the defendant's willingness to brazenly lie under oath about her conduct, including some of the conduct charged in the indictment, strongly suggests her true motive has been and remains to avoid being held accountable for her crimes. Joining us now is Andrew Weissmann, former FBI General Counsel and former Chief of the Criminal Division in the Eastern District of New York. Also with us, Christopher O'Leary, former Assistant Special Agent in charge of New York Joint Terrorism Task Force, also served as Chief of the FBI Counterterrorism Fly Team. They're both MSNBC analysts. And Andrew, to that point that I just read, Justice Department in 2020 saying, talking about Ghislaine Maxwell's willingness to brazenly lie under oath. How would that work today in a room with Todd Blanche?
This is why the comment from your guest yesterday was so on point. If you're going to try to get truthful information from her at this very late date, you need to have the team, the FBI agents, the prosecutors who investigated this, who know chapter and verse about what she has said, what she has done, what all of the other witnesses say. Otherwise, what it really appears to be is an effort to have Ghislaine Maxwell simply exonerate Donald Trump, regardless of whether it is truthful or not. That is obviously her motive right now, is to get a benefit, and that could be up to and including, as you mentioned, a full pardon. And the only way that you can really assure that she was telling the truth is to have people who really know the evidence. And we've talked about this, which is that is not the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, who is new to the case and doesn't have career people there at all. So it's just a highly, highly suspicious circumstance.
And Andrew, this is the same Trump Justice Department that just said a few weeks ago that there's absolutely nothing more in the Epstein case, that they've examined all of the Epstein files and there's nothing else to pursue, there's nothing else to investigate, there's nothing else to report on. That was the Pam Bondi official public report about the Epstein files.
Well, I have to say, personally, I just don't believe that. It is something, if you heard that from the career people who know this case inside out. But are we really supposed to believe, and I don't, that the only two people who participated in this are Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, that there were no other people who participated at all? And I think one sort of red herring here is this idea that there's no quote unquote client list. Whether it's, there's a piece of paper that says client list at the top of it, it seems impossible to think that the FBI on this case and the prosecutors on this case didn't put together a list of everyone who they thought was complicit with Mr. Epstein and with Ms. Maxwell, whether you call it a client list or not. And so I think there's just a lot more to come out, and I don't think we're being, told the truth about what's happened.
Christopher O'Leary, if you were working a case like this with the FBI and you've worked in the New York office where a lot of this work was done, what kind of lists would you expect to find in the Epstein files?
Well, I think Andrew hits on the point. Maybe there's not a list that, Jeffrey Epstein was keeping or Ghislaine Maxwell was keeping. However, any investigator, any agent that's working in this case is going to identify the close associates of the subject of the investigation, and then start determining what's the nature of that relationship. When were they co-located in a place where criminal activity was happening? And so those individuals might have been there innocently, but you would still want to dig deeper. So one thing that jumps out at me, and I was discussing this with a colleague earlier, is I would like to know, was the president interviewed as part of this investigation? And I don't think that's been answered yet. I don't think it's really been asked by that many people. It would be unusual for the types of investigations that I worked or that my fellow agents and investigators worked, that we would not have tried to approach that close associate and see if they were willing to cooperate. And if they weren't, then it begs the question, why? And I don't think we've seen that yet. Is it unusual that the president's name would be found in these files? No, if he was a close associate. It would be unusual if there wasn't further investigation.
So I asked you this in an office the other day here in the building about, if you were working this case in the New York office, the FBI, and you came across the New York Magazine profile of Donald Trump saying, I've known him for 15 years, he's a terrific guy, he likes beautiful women, especially on the younger side. If you read that article, would your to-do list include, let's go talk to Donald Trump?
It would be. And the first thing I think myself or other agents would do is try to find out more about him, try to find out, is he approachable? How do we go about this? So what I would understand the person I want to go talk to and set the conditions for trying to do that in the best way. Will he be a cooperator, or is he possibly, somebody that we should be looking at, more on the investigative side, and possibly he's involved in this somehow? So you would do that. You would really do your homework before, just going approach him. But you would be negligent if you did not take that approach, if you did not actually try to speak with Donald Trump back then, now the president of the United States.
And Andrew, no reporter who's ever gotten close to Donald Trump has ever asked him Chris's question, did the FBI interview you? Did you cooperate with this investigation in any way?
Absolutely. I am reminded, listening to the two of you, having worked on the Mueller investigation, of the president saying over and over again that he'd be happy to meet with us, only to have him renege and not do that. And, his unwillingness to testify at his first impeachment trial, at his second impeachment trial, in his criminal case. Of course, he's not required to, but that is not the standard one has for somebody who's in elected office. So it's an excellent question. This is exactly what this is, by the way, just goes to the point that you would not have this interview conducted by somebody who does not know the case, unless you're trying to neutralize the witness or get a sort of false exculpatory statement. If you're really trying to get at the truth, you would have experienced prosecutors and agents who know this case do the interview, so that you actually get valuable information and not a whitewash.
Chris, if Donald Trump was interviewed in this investigation, what would the evidence of that be in the Epstein files? What would we find?
So FBI agents, one of the core skills of the FBI is to do interviews and interrogations. We talk to people all the time. All those notes would be memorialized in what we call an FD 302. It's just a transcript of exactly what was exchanged. That would absolutely be in the Epstein file. There's no doubt. That could be released immediately. And one thing I'll point out, having interviewed and interrogated countless people over the years, people who are innocent, generally, when accused of something, are emphatic about their innocence. And they want to have you produce what's suspicious. And so if it was a file, innocent people will show me that file, point to me where you're saying I did something wrong. We'll go through it page by page. And innocent people tend to get really aggressive about this. People who are trying to cover something up tend to do the opposite or sidestep a question. And so if you look at his response just the other day when asked, was he told that his name was in the file, he tried to sidestep it. Traditionally speaking, and that doesn't mean that he's guilty of something, but traditionally speaking, that's not how innocent people respond to such a question.
And Andrew, we now have conclusive reporting that Donald Trump was, of course, told by Pam Bondi that his name appears in the Epstein files repeatedly, multiple times.
Look, that certainly gives an explanation for the flip-flop, where you have the administration saying that they're going to make everything public and they're going to be transparent about everything. And then the reporting is that lots of FBI agents were pulled from otherwise valid work and important work to go through these files to find every time that his name was mentioned. And so you're left to think that the reason for them changing their view with large political consequences as a result of it, having fomented this sort of conspiracy theory, is because his name is there. And you have Donald Trump's reaction to this, which is, very much sort of a very suspicious protesting too much. And so, it is really a confluence of sort of red flags that we have in front of us.
Andrew Weissmann and Christopher O'Leary, thank you both very much for your invaluable expertise on this tonight. Really appreciate it.
Welcome.
And coming up, Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego has tried to get a Senate vote on releasing the Epstein files, and that was blocked by Republicans today. He'll join us next.
If Donald Trump really wants these files released, they'd be out already. Instead, he's orchestrating a cover-up, and he is not acting alone. The entire Republican Party, the FBI director, the intelligence community, and the Justice Department are backing him up to bury the truth.
Our next guest, Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego of Arizona, introduced a resolution on the Senate floor today calling for the Justice Department to release the Epstein files. A vote on Senator Gallego's motion was blocked by Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma.
The Senate should go on record supporting the release of the Epstein files. Any effort to block their release is simply a continued cover-up of our nation's elites. While I stand here on the Senate floor demanding answers, House Republicans have ran for the exit, ended their term early, skipping town early to avoid taking up any more discussion about Epstein and the files. They didn't just punt accountability, they literally fled Washington, D.C. While everyday Americans are struggling to afford their groceries and their health care, we have a president in the White House focused on protecting the most powerful men and women who preyed on children. This is who Donald Trump really is.
Joining us now is Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego of Arizona, is member of the Senate Banking Committee and the Homeland Security Committee. Senator, thank you very much for joining us tonight. The way this story is moving tonight, it seems like we may have a new page from the birthday book every day. Is the pressure building in the Senate the way it's so obviously built in the House to the point where they just blew up the place and went home?
Not quite yet. I mean, this is why my efforts, again, this is my second effort actually to try to get the Senate to actually vote on whether or not we should have these Epstein files released. And what we saw today was a new wrinkle done by the Senate where they were trying to kind of basically do a quick flim-flam trick where they're saying, well, we want you to vote to release the grand jury testimony, which we already saw that nothing came of that, because they know that they actually are starting to feel the pressure from people in their districts, pressure from the public, that at this point, it just stinks. And I think what is happening right now is there's just a lot of Americans that know when there's a cover-up happening. They know when the elite are using government to take care of themselves, and they see it right now. And it's starting to put these pressure on these, Republican senators that normally can be above it. But we're going to continue to put this pressure on them because people deserve to know the truth. What has been going on for the last 8 years? Were they just lying and talking about, potentially, DOJ employees covering up for something that didn't happen? Did they put Ms. Maxwell in jail for nothing that didn't happen? Or is Donald Trump continuing what we know he's always done? He's just taking care of his rich elite friends and using the federal government now to do it.
And the very concept of the Epstein files has expanded since this story began, with Senator Wyden, the top Democrat in the Senate Finance Committee, revealing that there are 4,000 transactions that the United States Treasury has a record of more than $1 billion of Jeffrey Epstein. International transactions that Senator Wyden believes would be very helpful in tracking how Jeffrey Epstein managed this international sex trafficking.
Yeah, look, this is an administration that right now is trying to hunt down, in Arizona, a woman that's been here for 21 years who has, a U.S. citizen child, a U.S. citizen husband who has started a business. But they're not willing to look into a man, Jeffrey Epstein, who was involved in international sex trafficking, both of women and of Johns and clients from all over the world. And why is that? Because these are people that are dear and close friends to Donald Trump, or were business associates, or somehow he was involved and he's embarrassed by it. But all that being said, the American public deserves to know. And let's remind people, this issue would not have been an issue if it wasn't for the Trump administration bringing it to the floor. It was Attorney General Pam Bondi who said to us, I have the list. It is now sitting on my desk, and then went on to these shenanigans to basically hide that for the next couple of weeks. So now the American public wants to know, why are you lying? They sense that there is something wrong, and they certainly sense when government is lying to them. And they definitely feel it when they're doing it to really protect the most elite of this country.
Senator Ruben Gallego, thank you very much for joining our discussion tonight.
Gracias.
And coming up, our next guest has covered the Jeffrey Epstein case for decades and written a book about it, published a set of questions in the New York Times that he hopes the Epstein files can answer. He will join us next. Our next guest, Barry Levine's new essay in the New York Times is titled, I Covered the Epstein Case for Decades. These are 9 questions we actually need answered. Barry Levine is the author of The Spider, Inside the Criminal Web of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and he joins us now. Barry, your 9 questions are fantastic, and actually I'm going to invite you right now to come back on the program because I'd like to go through each one of them. But I would like you, since you know the questions to ask, what are the questions that you would have asked if you were allowed to question Ghislaine Maxwell today the way Donald Trump's former criminal defense lawyer did?
Well, Lawrence, I probably would have started with the incident that took place, the very first incident, when Jeffrey Epstein took her to a camp in Michigan, where he had, as a boy, was a musical student. And at that camp, they moved on a 13-year-old girl and convinced her to come to Florida And Jeffrey Epstein subsequently attacked her, sexually abused her. And I would ask Ms. Maxwell, why didn't you just run? Why didn't you run from this man? Because none of this would have ever happened. But what happened over the next several years was that she groomed so many victims. She took part in their sexual abuse. And I still don't understand why she went along with his sex trafficking when she could have, you know, she was a smart, intelligent woman and she could have escaped on her own. That's what I don't understand.
And she's never really been questioned about this. She's been under oath in some civil cases. That's where the perjury charges came from, was in the lawsuits. That's where she got in trouble. So what do you think people need to know about, I feel silly to even ask this, her credibility in any of these matters?
Well, you know, I wouldn't trust her at all unless she could corroborate information. Obviously, her agenda is to either get a pardon from President Trump or to have her sentence, have some years taken off. She's never told the truth. She went through about a half a dozen civil lawsuits. She lost a defamation case against the chief accuser, Virginia Giuffre, who sadly passed on this past April. She has no credibility as far as I'm concerned. However, there had been much speculation that she was holding on to materials, possibly videotapes, possibly documents. Is this something that she is now going to turn over to the authorities? We don't know. But certainly everything she says has to be corroborated with evidence, because, you know, I think she's a liar. She's a predator, and she just abused and groomed these victims for so many years.
If the Epstein files were to come out, where would you go first? What are the first things you'd try to look at?
Well, the hard evidence, Lawrence, certainly. You know, there were at least on the evidence list, we know of 40 computers. We know of 70 CDs. We know of the fact that the authorities had put Maxwell under some type of phone wiretap. So let's look at that very hard evidence in black and white and see what's there. Let's go down that financial trail. As you mentioned, Senator Wyden. Jeffrey Epstein moved money through Russian banks, but he had fixers. He had international fixers to send him girls to his island in the Virgin Islands. Let's go after those men. If there's, you know, documented information, let's get those Virgin Island records. The Attorney General there, Denise George, did a great job in terms of her initial investigation, but it needs to be expanded, and it needs the help of the FBI. And then, of course, let's look at the autopsy report of Jeffrey Epstein's death. We've never seen that. We've never seen the report in terms of the investigation into his death. Was there DNA on the bed sheet that he used? These are all things that we have to, you know, look into.
Barry Levine, I got to need you back here when I get back from vacation. Everyone should read his op-ed piece in the New York Times about the questions he has in the Epstein case. Barry Levine, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lawrence.
We'll be right back. That is tonight's last word. I'm going to take 1 week of vacation next week. Then I will be right back here at this desk saying hi to Rachel when I get back.